ABC, I'm back. It's been a really long time since I made a video. A lot's happened since the last time I made one. A lot's happened to the channel, a lot's happened to my life. As you can see now, I got some different surroundings. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I've been very busy. I started my doctorate down here. I've been freelancing, working a lot as a musician. Forgive the beer. I've been playing like 7 hours today, and this is the first time I've had any break whatsoever, so I'm multitasking. So the channel's been kind of blowing up in the couple months since I made my last video, partly due to some of the longer videos I made, like the equipment tour and the classical record collecting video. Have been kind of blowing up and bringing in an audience outside the normal VC or vinyl community. On the equipment video, I've actually had to start moderating the comments, which is something I hoped I'd never have to do on this channel. In so many parts of YouTube, comment sections tend to be cancerous. They tend to be really awful places. And reading the comments on a lot of places on YouTube and other parts of the internet is generally a depressing experience. And I'm trying to make sure that's not a thing here. The vinyl community and this channel in particular should be a place where people can discuss the things they care about and the things they love, and not have to worry about ridiculous flame wars or mean-spirited, rude, or generally nasty people or comments. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we can all discuss freely in the comments, have pleasant disagreements, share our experiences, things like that, and not have it just be a shouting match. That's something I shouldn't really have to say, but apparently I do now that a lot of traffic from outside the VC has found its way to this channel. But on the other hand, I'm up to like 950 subscribers now. That's crazy. There are 950 people that want to watch me talk about records and audio crap. So thank you guys. I never dreamed that the channel would get this big. The subscriber count rose so quickly that I didn't even have time to do a contest for like 500 to 750 subscribers. I think I was in like the 300s or 400s earlier this summer, and just in the last 2 months, it's just shot way up. I think I want to do a 1,000 subscriber count VC contest. So when I hit 1,000 subscribers, sometime shortly after there, I think I'm going to do a contest announcement. I'm going to try to do a cool contest so people can make some interesting videos. I'll try to line up good prizes, maybe like 2 nice records or something like that, or maybe some music paraphernalia, something like that. I haven't decided yet. I need to get started on it because I'm getting up there. I'm like 50 people away from 1,000. So look for that shortly. I will try my best to make it happen in a timely fashion, but it will happen. I promise you, I'm doing a contest. So, cheers. So, shall we look at some records? Because I've been so busy and I had to move, and I've just, kind of been working my ass off down here ever since I got here. I haven't picked up that much, but I do have some stuff. I got a really cool lot of records from Japan. Some I actually ordered from Japan, and some I picked up in record stores. So I'm going to show those records first. First we got a record by the 1980s punk new wave band The Mods from Japan. These guys were pioneers in like the poppy punk sound of the 80s in Japan, and were really influential to a lot of bands. This is their debut record. They have a string of other albums that I hope to pick up. They did like 4 more after this in the same era. Another 80s Japanese punk band, we got The Willard, Good Evening, Wonderful Fiend. Another pretty influential record, not so much a big seller, but very influential on the underground to a lot of bands. And this was one of the bands that was kind of a pioneer of introducing like that visual style, visual rock, visual K style in the 80s in Japan. And they were really influential to bands that would come slightly after them, like X Japan. If you can maybe see the back there, see the band there. Got a pretty intense metal band here. This is Japanese band Loudness, The Law of Devil's Land. Loudness were a power technical speed metal-ish band from Japan in the 80s, 70s too, but mostly the 80s. And they were actually pretty big in the West. They went on tours of Europe and I think the United States too. Like you can go on YouTube and watch. There's a whole live movie someone uploaded to YouTube about their tour through Europe, and you go and you see all these like Dutch and German metalheads just like going crazy for this Japanese band. Another band in the same kind of metal vein. This is Dead End, Deadline, the debut album from them. They were another Japanese speed/power metal band from the 80s. A little less in the speed metal, a little more in the like hair metal kind of genre. And this was also a band that was influential to like visual bands that would come later, like X Japan and Lunacy and stuff like that. Got a modern record here. Brand new album by one of my favorite currently active Japanese bands, that is Muku. This is their new album that came out this summer, Mayaku Haku. Muku are spelled like muck, but it's actually pronounced Muku. If you see there, M-U-C-C. These guys are a alternative rock, alternative metal quartet, and they've been around for almost 25 years now. They've been doing this a really long time, and I'm a big fan of most of their discography. However, the last album that they released that I really enjoyed was their album that came out like 2008, 2009. The last couple albums they put out have not really been to my taste. They've been more into the pop style, electronic style, and not really embracing their heavier roots. And to me, this album is definitely a return to form for them. It's really a hearkening back to their older, more angst-ridden sound that has a lot more grit to it. While it's still definitely coherent with the stuff they've released recently, I do think it's a return to form, if there ever is such a thing. And this is cool because it's the first album they ever released on vinyl. Vinyl pressing, again, is not a big thing for bands in Japan currently. Hoping it's more of a thing soon. So this is a limited edition that they put out. They only pressed 2,000 of these at the only record pressing plant still operating in Japan, which I don't remember the name of. I'm sure Paul would know. But yeah, this was pressed in Japan. They only made 2,000 copies. I don't think it's ever going to get repressed, probably. So yeah, I'm excited to own this. This is cool. Then we got 2 EPs from one of my favorite Japanese bands, Boris, and you've heard me talk about Boris on this channel before. They're coming to Phoenix next month. I'm going to go see them. I think they're playing with like Torch and a couple other doom metal bands. This is their EP, Vain. What's interesting about this EP is that if you really look at it, it's actually more of a 10-inch. It's a 12-inch EP, but it's really a 10-inch because in between the 10 and the 12 section, there's just this lathe etching. It's not actual music there. This is an EP that they have 2 versions of. They have Vain Heavy version and Vain Ambient version, and I think Europe and Japan got the ambient version, and in the US we got the heavy version, which is this really, even for them it's a really spastic and chaotic, fast record. They generally play a slower, heavier style of metal, and this kind of sounds more like a hardcore punk record. And another EP by Boris. This is Boris with Merzbow. Merzbow is, of course, an artist that they team up with a ton. They've done so many releases with Merzbow, who is, of course, the pseudonym of a noise artist whose actual name I forget. But he's a harsh noise artist. He collaborates with a ton of artists around the world. He's done records with the power violence band Full of Hell. I think he's worked with Juju. Anyway, so this is a record that Boris did with them out of many. They've done like 5 records with Merzbow. And this is a 12-inch single with a really, really awesome Beatles cover, a cover of the Beatles' I'm the Walrus. Definitely the best Beatles cover I've ever heard. Okay, that's it for the Japanese records. Got an original pressing here of Sonic Youth's album Sister. And what's cool about this, because it is the very first pressing, it's the only pressing that exists that has this Disney picture on the cover. because this was, Disney were not too happy about that, and it got removed from all subsequent pressings. Got a classic here. This is an original pressing of Strawberry Alarm Clock's Incense and Peppermints. One of the hands-down classics of the Summer of Love. This is a unique record because, a lot of records from this era had a couple really, really good hits on them. And then the rest of the record would more or less be kind of filler, a lot of like blues covers or, blues ripoffs. There isn't a bad song on this album. I enjoy, I think, every single track on here. And albums like that are special, I think. Another awesome record from that era. This is the Chocolate Watch Band, The Inner Mystique. Their second album, and most people agree their best. This is not an original pressing. This is a Sundazed reissue because originals of this are pricey. Speaking of pricey originals, got the self-titled debut album from the British psychedelic band July on here. The originals of this sell for like $300, $400 in, VG plus condition. So it wasn't really worth any effort to try to track down an original pressing. So I got the next best thing, which is music on vinyl pressing. And I know music on vinyl doesn't cut from original analog sources. I know that, but their pressings are really high quality, and from everything I've been able to research online, they usually use high-res digital sources. So for kind of an obscure album like this, I'm just happy if someone repressed it at all. Original U.S. pressing here of Blue Cheer's debut album, The Sinbus Eruptum. Really awesome proto-heavy metal. I mean, this is like, if you were wondering what heavy metal was doing before Black Sabbath, it was this stuff. Original pressing here of Vanilla Fudge's debut album. Again, really great album. It just goes to show that you can be really creative and innovative without necessarily writing your own tunes. You can expand on other music and do your own creative shtick with it. This one. I'm gonna drink first. This is a weird one. Captain Beefheart, Trout Mask Replica. I don't really need to say anything about this record, I don't think. It's, many more people have talked about it much more eloquently than I have. It's one of those I think you have to really sit down and digest it. This is not an original pressing, unfortunately. I got this in Boise a couple weeks ago when I was there. This is a late 70s repress on Reprise. Still, going to be an all analog cut, but not the original pressing, which I'm kind of bummed about because I know the original pressing has like the full booklet and this doesn't. It just has the gatefold. But again, I'm not that crazy about this album that I'm gonna, this is gonna be the last pressing I ever have of this probably. Got the new Mo-Fi of Procol Harum, A Salty Dog, one of the more underrated UK prog bands. I'm going to do these first. Got an original US pressing of Iron Butterfly's live album. Really cool psychedelia. And a US pressing of Focus's Moving Waves, which when it was originally released in Europe, it was called Focus 3, but in the US it got renamed Focus Moving Waves. And of all the US pressings, this is the first US pressing. But not an original pressing, because I think an original pressing would technically be a Dutch pressing, I want to say. Yeah, but this is really great, like, instrumental focused prog rock that I just kind of stumbled on YouTube one day, and then I saw this in a record store. I'm like, oh yeah, I should pick this up. We got the brand new Enter Shikari album, The Spark. I pre-ordered this, so it came right from England. And the first, I think it was like the first 2,000 copies that was going to be signed by the band, so this is a signed copy. I'm a huge fan of Enter Shikari. I think they're a great band, and I really love the activism and the lyrics that they put into their work. They're a band with a conscience, and I think we need more bands like that. I gotta say, musically, not my favorite Enter Shikari release from what I've listened to of it so far. It's a little too pop oriented for my taste. I do miss their heavier sound, but I do admire the fact that they're always morphing and they're always changing and they're always kind of doing new things. So even though the sound isn't to my taste, I still respect the hell out of them and will probably buy their next album. Last rock record. We got a reissue here of Page 99's long out of print Document 5. This is a new reissue that Reptilian Records just put out. Oh, the glare is awful. I'm sorry. But Page 99, I've talked about them before. They're a old school screamo band from the late 90s, early 2000s. They had I think they had 13 members in the band. Like sometimes in old videos you could see they would sometimes have 2 drummers. They were kind of more of a collective than a band, it seems like. And they're actually doing some reunion shows right about now in the Northeast, East Coast. Only got a couple classical records this time around, but I think there's some good ones. We got an original living stereo shaded dog of Fritz Reiner conducting selections of Wagner's music, some selections from Die Meistersinger, and some selections from Götterdämmerung. And, yeah, it is a original shaded dog pressing. Here we got an original Mercury Living Presence pressing of Marcel Dupré playing some organ music, his own compositions, and also that of Olivier Messiaen. Messiaen, of course, famous French composer who wrote a ton of organ music. What's really interesting about this record is, Marcel Dupré, if you know anything about organ at all, which most people don't, but if most people who are into organ know that Dupré was one of the most famous organists who ever lived and a prolific organ composer. But outside of the organ world, not that well known. Olivier Messiaen, though, is very well known to most people in classical music. He was a very prolific composer, most famous for the piece Quartet for the End of Time, which, for those that aren't familiar with Quartet for the End of Time, Olivier Messiaen, who is French, actually spent time in a concentration camp during World War II. And during that time, while he was there, he found a couple other musicians there and convinced the guards to get them what instruments they could find, which was a clarinet, a piano, and 2 string instruments, which I want to say cello and violin, but don't quote me. It's been a while since I listened to the piece. And named it Quartet for the End of Time, and it's the most haunting, eerie, painfully beautiful music you're ever going to listen to. I highly recommend checking out that piece. But enough ranting about music history. Olivier Messiaen was a student of Marcel Dupré. So here, Marcel Dupré is playing music written by his student, which is really, this makes this a really historically significant record, at least to me. Here we got a nice British London pressing of a piece that I haven't had in my collection, and that's kind of shocking to me at least. This is Tchaikovsky's Manfred Symphony, played by Vladimir Ashkenazy in the new Philharmonia Orchestra. Manfred Symphony gets overlooked. I don't know why. If you have Tchaikovsky, it's mostly Symphony 4, 5, and 6, and Manfred Symphony gets kind of ignored, but it was written in the same era that Symphonies 4, 5, and 6 were written. So I don't know why that is, but it's a great piece of music. Have a pressing from the series that Arthur Rubinstein did for RCA of the Beethoven piano concertos. We have him playing Beethoven Concerto No. 4 with Symphony of the Air. Symphony of the Air, of course, is the former NBC Symphony Orchestra. After Toscanini died, they reformed under Symphony of the Air for a couple years. Arthur Rubinstein, one of the greatest pianists that ever lived. His Beethoven interpretation is second to none. Excellent playing, excellent sound, shaded dog pressing. And last, but certainly not least, probably one of the best classical pickups I think I've found in a couple months at least. This is Mercury pressing of Franck's Symphony in D minor, conducted by Paul Perret and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. I don't find that many Mercurys around. They're rare as far as classical records go. And when I do find them, they're almost always shot to shit. I mean, like, scratched up, or just, they've taken so much abuse over the years that the grooves are worn down, or, whatnot. So, it's really awesome when I can find them in clean condition, which this one is pristine. It looks like it's never been played. But what's even cooler is, so it's everything you want in a Mercury. It's sparkling clean. It's an early stamper. It's an RFR stamper or FR stamper. I forget which one. Color back, because the later ones had black and white backs. But the most special of all is it's a promo. It's a white label promo. So that means it's definitely the earliest pressing they did of this particular album. So that's cool. I'd never had a Mercury white label promo before. And the music is to die for. Franck's Symphony in D minor, a lot of people think it's cheesy. I think it's a ton of fun. It's a really fun symphony to listen to. It's a really fun symphony to play. It's beautiful music. Franck was a really great composer. But it is at times it can be a little kitschy, but that's part of why I love it. So, thank you guys for being so patient with me not uploading videos in like 3 months. Like I said, it's been a busy time, which is good. It's been good that I've been busy and I haven't had a ton of time to sit around worrying about records. But I figured I owed it to you guys to show off some wax. I figure I owe you a contest video coming up very soon, because I'm right almost to 1,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for all your support. I never thought in a million years that almost 1,000 people would care about what I had to say about music or vinyl or audio. It really makes me feel great, and I'll try to give you more content and do more to share with y'all. So have a good night, VC.